Mayor Pete was asked about his big money fundraising, and he gives a classic Mayor Pete disingenuous response.
It's not just protesters. Senator Warren said in a speech this week in New Hampshire that she has a rival in the race who, quote, offers top donors regular phone calls and special access when a candidate brags about how beholden he feels to a group of wealthy investors. Our democracy is in serious trouble. That comment was widely seen as a reference to you. Is that a fair critique? What's your response?
You know, the thing about these purity tests is the people issuing them can't even meet them, right? If doing traditional fundraisers disqualifies you from running for president, then I guess neither one of us would be here. Let's have a serious conversation about where this country is headed. And hitting somebody with a process purity test when we're in the debate of our lifetimes about what it's going to take to move this country forward in very specific policy terms, like who has a better vision on how to make sure we move to universal health care in this country, and in broader terms about what kind of path is needed to create that sense of belonging and replace that sense of exclusion that is defining American life. This deserves to be at the center of the debate, and that's where I'm going to keep my focus.
The people who complain about purity tests are the people who can't pass them. Now, the question was fundamentally about corruption and bribery, and his response was, enough with the purity tests. Wanting your politicians to not be corrupt, wanting to stop bribery, is not a purity test. It's common sense. It's like saying you want your pilot to have passed flight school. It's like thing number one on the list for accepting a politician, accepting somebody's expertise in a given field. And listen, Mayor Pete used to support Medicare for All, or at least he claimed to. He was all over Twitter, being Smuggy McSmuggington, responding to everybody who claimed he doesn't support Medicare for All, and he would be like, excuse you, I do support Medicare for All. And they were like, really? You haven't given us any indication of that. Well, I, Mayor Pete, hereby do declare that henceforth I do support Medicare for All. Incredibly smug, incredibly condescending, and lying, by the way. But here's the other part of the story. Why is it that he went from Medicare for All to Medicare for All who wanted? Even, you could say, okay, just in rhetoric, he went from Medicare for All to Medicare for All who wanted. Why? Why? How did that happen? Well, this is the part that he doesn't want you to know, is that Mayor Pete has taken a grand total of $97,000 in big money from big pharmaceutical companies and for-profit health insurance companies. And this includes, CEOs, vice presidents, other executives. This is what we're talking about here. We're talking about a guy who took $97,000 from the industry and then, wow, he watered down his position massively to keep these people in control of the system. And then when he's asked a direct question about the big money fundraisers, about the corruption, about the bribery, his response is, purity test. Okay, I'm going to make this as simple as possible, guys. Mayor Pete is a dishonest hack. He's a dishonest hack. He knows what he's doing. I always like to default to somebody being wrong as opposed to just malicious. But in the case of Mayor Pete, it's malicious, and he's dishonest. He knows he's taken a lot of money from these people, and he knows he wants to represent them. So he's not a change candidate. Again, I call these candidates status quo managers. They're for minor tweaks around the edges while largely keeping business as usual functioning. But that's a problem, because business as usual is terrible. Business as usual is failing everybody. Business as usual is leading to 500,000 medical bankruptcies a year. Business as usual is killing 30,000 to 45,000 Americans every single year because they don't have health care. Business as usual is Congress with a 21% approval rating. The system's broken. It's not working for you. And instead of honestly answering a question about the corrupting influence of money in politics and de facto bribery, he says, it's a purity test. It's a purity test. That's what this is. So I'll end the segment the same way I started it. The only people who complain about purity tests are the ones who can't pass them. And doesn't that seem crystal clear today?